I think that is called doubling down, and well deserved.
They'll be wheeling them out on his wheel.
You probably get some humorous answers from the Norwich and West Brom fans.
You mean you don't have to let the other team score?
Yeah, well, from your childhood, maybe.
There was a spoiler alert on this earlier in the episode, wasn't there?
Hello guys and welcome to the Sportsman Untitled. I'm Simon Lillibury and today I'm joined by Benjamin Bloom and Gab Sutton as always. This week we're going to take a look at what's going wrong at QPR. We're going to look at Leeds United's title charge and also what next for Mark Robins at Coventry City. But first, before we jump into the show, let me ask you to like and subscribe as always and follow us on Spotify if you don't. We've got weekly episodes coming on the Championship every single week. Gab, let's start with you. Welcome back as always. Nice to have you here. Leeds United are now favourites to win the Championship after their win over Sheffield United. They're looking pretty good, aren't they? They look strong on Friday, but moving forward, they're going to be tough to stop, aren't they?
Certainly are, yeah. I'm really impressed with the form of Mateo Joseph this season. He seems to have didn't even start a game last season, but he's really gone up another level and shown why the potential that Spain saw him in, really, to put him in the under-21 squad for there. I think he's been such a strong runner for them this season, and even if he hasn't necessarily been among the goals, I think he's been really important to, you know, the quality that we've seen from the likes of Aronson and Ramazani and Nonto, of course, as well. So yeah, Leeds look very difficult to stop at the moment.
And we've got to talk about, of course, Gab's favourite team, Sunderland. Ben, I'll let you do a bit of talking about them. They're actually second favourites to win the Championship now. Another win for them again this weekend. Do you think they're kind of going to keep this form up? It's been incredible so far.
I mean, if only somebody had predicted this to happen. I've taken a while to warm up. I wasn't ahead of the curve like Gab was, but looking at the way things are panning out, and there doesn't seem to be a tear away 90, 95, 100 point side. I think they're good value for that second place spot. So impressed, so robust, and then to all the points you were making on the pre-season pod, a lot of those players are now maturing at the right time. So well done, mate.
Thank you. I mean, it's early days, isn't it? Only 10 games in, so still a long way to go, of course. But yeah, great start for Sunderland. I'm really excited about the depth they've got in that midfield area, because you've got Dan Neil, Joe Bellingham and Chris Rigg. I mean, two of them, Bellingham and Rigg in particular, I think have a huge amount of potential, and maybe Neil if he gets used further forward as well. They've got another number 6 that they signed in the summer as well to come in.
Fullbacks, Gab.
You like the fullbacks?
Yeah, Hume, fantastic as well.
Well, Sirkin puts in some great challenges, doesn't he, as well? So yeah, really impressed with Sunderland at the moment, and looking good at the moment.
Is it going to be your best ever prediction if this one comes up? At the moment, it's looking like, I mean, none of us saw this coming. I think I laughed at you quite a bit. I don't know what Ben's reaction was when you said
I'm used to it now, Simon.
But it's incredible, genuinely incredible. So well done. It shows you know your stuff. But can they keep it up? I mean, we talk about squad depth and things. We look at those attacking positions. They've got quality. But are you concerned if there's a few injuries or the fixtures get closer together as we come to Christmas?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, I think they lost Jack Clark, so that's obviously a bit of a hit for them in terms of the wide areas. I do think that they are going to rely on Patrick Roberts keeping up his form. Possibly wasn't quite at his best on Sunday at Hull City. I think that's going to be really important. Mundell's been in great form as well. But I think probably in January, I think they'll be looking at, sort of, can we add one or two other wide options to sort of bolster the squad, possibly even a centre forward in there as well. But I think it's been, great start for them. And they look like a team that they're so aggressive without the ball, and they're very compact. So I really like that about this Sunderland side.
Absolutely. Are you still kind of happy to get behind Leeds as title favourites, Ben, or are you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're all looking at the Gruev and Ampadu absences, and we think that's going to be a couple of months' worth. But I thought they're really good on Friday against Sheffield United, against a really good, stoic team with sort of Tanaka and Rothwell in there. I'm sure the Leeds fans probably wouldn't have wanted that to be the solution at the start of the season, but it's the Championship, and like you're talking about Sunderland, you just got to, in the winter with the 3-game weeks piling up, it's that muscle memory and that ability to just get through. And then, as you were saying, Gab, there's just maybe not the level last year with Somerville and Ruter, but there's just that quality in there to win games. And I've said it 100 times on here, Daniel Farke just knows the course and that repetition that's needed in the Championship. So, yeah, I would definitely be sticking with Leeds as title favourites.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Ben. I think that you look at their squad depth and you talk about like someone like Pirro coming in and off the bench and all of these players they've got. You mentioned Ampadu and Grue have massive injuries. Which other teams in the Championship could replace them with Rothwell and Tanaka have both done so well. So I think that's where the difference will be made. And of course, you're right with Daniel Farke as well.
Yeah, Daniel Farke's doing a great job. I think I take Ben's point about losing the likes of Somerville and Ruta, but I think as a squad, as a collective, they're probably a bit better, even if they've lost some of those individual stars. So, yeah, very impressed with Leeds and a great performance against Sheffield United, who, by the way, had a great start themselves. They were unbeaten going into that game as well. I'm sure Sheffield United, on evidence so far, can be in the playoff equation this season, but yeah, Leeds are going to take some stopping.
Absolutely. Have you been surprised by Burnley, Gab? Because I know you and I before the season were a bit more negative on them. They came down from the Premier League. Scott Parker's obviously got questions to answer for some in the Championship, but they're doing well again. He seems to be picking up decent results, and they're in the kind of automatic promotion hunt as things stand.
They are. They've actually got the lowest expected goals for in the Championship.
Shots on target as well. They are maximising everything at the moment.
They are, and they have got the individual quality to make the most of that. But I mean, since they won their first two games, 4-1 at Luton and 5-0 against Cardiff, they lost. They've sold 8 players that featured in those games from the sort of Premier League squad, and I think they've still been able to get by on individual quality, but I'm not quite sure they're going to stay in the top 2 equation. Maybe I did them a bit of a disservice in the summer in terms of outside the top 6. Maybe they will finish in the playoffs. I don't see them finishing top 2.
For you, Ben?
It's just classic Scott Parker, isn't it? We just sit here every time, and if you speak to a Fulham fan or a Bournemouth fan, not too sure it was all him, it was the squad, but every time the conversation ends with, but his team has nearly 2 points per game, or I think above 2 points per game at the moment. So the guy knows what he's doing at this level, and boring, broken record Year 1 parachute teams tend to be in around top 4, top 2. So I suspect they'll stay the course in some regard, but I don't have them winning it, no.
Is there an argument to be made that Parker deserves credit for... He's got this... Okay, he seems to be making the most of his chances and relying on individual players, as we've seen at Bournemouth and Fulham, but you have to have some sort of kind of tactical acumen to let that be the case. I mean, he's getting the best out of his best players, some would say, no?
What's your take?
I think in terms of the results would certainly say that, so you've got to give him some credit for that. I mean, I think in terms of organisation, I'm sure that's one component of it because they have looked well drilled, but also it does help when you've got a centre-back like Maxime Ishtev, who probably would be in a shout for the France squad at the America World Cup in 2026. So that's the kind of calibre of players that they're working with. And so, yeah, I'll give Parker some credit for delivering the results, but I'm not quite convinced that they're going to stay at this level the whole season.
That's fair enough. Another relegated team we need to talk about is Luton. Rob Edwards was under massive pressure, Ben, heading into this weekend. Got that big Derby Day win. Are you expecting more from Luton now? Expect them to climb the table? Have they turned a corner?
we said they'd turned the corner about 3 times already. I think they had sort of back-to-back wins a few weeks ago, and we thought, right, okay, here we go. But I mean, look, the whole form goes out the window in a derby and raising your game for that. So we do need to see them now follow up. I believe they're playing Sunderland in midweek as well, which is pretty stiff. They looked more themselves, dominating from set plays again, dominating at the Kenny. We just need to see more evidence, and just a bit disappointed. It looks like Morris is kind of getting his mojo back. Jacob Brown returned and scored. We just expected Morris and Adebayo to cause complete havoc at this level. There'll be a trend up, I have no doubt, but maybe you can take the ball and run with it here, Gab. Whether that ends in top 8 or top 6, I'm not totally sure yet.
I think they'll be top 10. I think they've sort of gone back to an out-and-out front two, because earlier in the season they were playing more of a front three with kind of Morris a bit out wider, whereas in the 3-0 victory over Watford, it was more of a front two and they played Chong behind. And I think they looked a little bit more balanced like that, combined with Mark McGuinness, who was arguably man of the match in that game. He was absolutely imperious. I think they're going to starting to look a bit more solid defensively. So hopefully they can use it. Winning a derby game, you might know this, Ben.
I'm an Ipswich fan. I've forgotten what that's like.
We're from your childhood, maybe.
Yeah,
Sometimes that could be a springboard for the rest of the season, can it?
Oh, amazing!
There's always an Ipswich dig. There is always an Ipswich dig.
You didn't even mean to.
I wasn't intending to.
Let's look a little further down the table, all the way to the bottom. In fact, I want to take you back to the 30th of September, because that is the date that QPR decided to hand Marty Cifuentes a new long-term contract, Ben. It feels difficult now at Loftus Road, doesn't it? I mean, bottom of the league, it's not looking all that positive. They've got a big game to come on Tuesday night against Coventry, which we'll come on to. Why haven't QPR kicked on from last season? Because for me, it felt like, rightly or wrongly, Danny Roll and Marty Cifuentes were put into the same category of managers who saved clubs that were destined for League One. And most pundits thought both of them would be climbing the table, but it's not been the case at all.
I'm pretty shocked by it, and I totally endorse your comparison. And the problem for Marty Cifuentes is that Danny Rolls had a bad run and sorted it out and, got Sheffield Wednesday going again. I think perhaps you look to the recruitment that Cifuentes has brought players in, and I'm not saying they're not going to work out long term, but it hasn't worked out yet. I don't think it helps Marty Cifuentes that Derby and Oxford have actually been really decent, and when you're picking out, and I guess Plymouth's home form as well, as you're expecting you don't want all the League One teams to be above
Blackburn
you.
Even as well.
Yeah. There's been a lot of performers who certain of us would have had in the bottom three, bottom six.
Watford even, who were expected
quite.
To well, basically, all of the potential pre-season strugglers have done
and
reasonably
QPR
well.
are filling that hole, aren't they? And it's a bit perplexing, because I was so pleased after years of sort of buffoonery at QPR. Right, they brought in a good guy, and here we go, and here we are again, bottom of the table. I feel for the Rangers fans, I really do.
One win so far, Gab. I mean, you're looking for where the next win can come from. From what I've seen on fans online, it's all looking quite negative. I don't know if it's a style of play issue. They've got Steve Cook at the back, who's experienced, but it feels like they're trying to be a more possession-based side this season.
Yeah.
Is that the issue?
Well, it was interesting because you would... on Loft for Words, which is an excellent Queen's Park Rangers site, they did a really interesting article on Cifuentes, where when he first came in, he tried to play the style of football that we're seeing now, and there was a slight improvement from the defensive football they'd seen under Ainsworth, but they were still making errors, and it was kind of costing them. And actually, Cifuentes came to a kind of compromise where there's a little bit of football, but it was also a bit more dynamic, a bit more, get it forward early and sort of play on the counter-attack. And I think this season he's tried to go more for the sort of the idealistic way that he wants to move forward with, but he's got Steve Cook and Jimmy Dunn at the back, who aren't necessarily the best ball-playing defenders in the Championship. So you've got Paul Nardi, the goalkeeper. You've got Karamoko Dembele, who did brilliantly on loan at Blackpool last season. They've gone on loan from Brest. He's a very diminutive, creative player. And then Michael Frey's done quite well up top as a number 10. But it's sort of 3 out of 11, probably isn't going to cut it. So they need a few other players to kind of step up, really, and probably need a bit more in terms of ball-playing ability in defence midfield.
And in the past, sorry Simon,
sure.
Dykes, Chair, Willock have been, I know Willock maybe a while back, they've been people they've relied on who are now, I know Chair's now coming back, now not in the picture as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to just mention passing out from the back. I think Clark Salter's been injured.
Great point.
If you look
at
a left-sided centre-back, left-footed comfortable on the ball, I think he will hopefully improve things for them if you're looking at that, because you're right. If they're trying to play out of the back with Cook and Dunn, it's probably not going to end well, is it? Their opponents, I'm afraid we have to talk about them on Tuesday night at Coventry City. Pressure building, it feels like, on Mark Robins. A lot of frustration, I think, after a 1-0 defeat at Preston. There's a video going around of Mark Robins coming over to the fans, and one particular fan in particular was very frustrated. You rarely see stuff like this from Robins. Gab, I'll start with you.
Do you think that... Sorry, can I just ask?
Yeah.
Do you think that it's sort of easier for Mark Robins to do that because of his status at Coventry City and the respect that there is for him broadly?
Yeah, I think it is. It's just weird. It was out of character, and we don't really see him going over to fans too much. He goes and claps them. I think it was one individual who was having a bit of a go at him, which he responded to.
Right.
But if you look at the rest of the video and the rest of the fan base, it was a very much encouragement and like, come on, let's get this sorted and let's get going. I think he's saying he's got credit in the bank, which he certainly does. I certainly don't want him to be sacked, but it feels like the pressure is building. When you look at the pre-season expectations and what we're seeing on the pitch, they don't match up.
Well, we're seeing 11 games of underperformance versus 7 years of brilliance. And I think Mark Robins has been in difficult spots with Coventry City before, and he's found solutions. For example, in his first full season, losing Jody Jones and then sort of tweaking things to sort of get the best out of Biamu and McNulty. And then a couple of seasons after that, the title-winning season, it was a switch from, was it 4-3-3 initially to 3-4-2-1. And so I think he's very good at finding solutions in season, in maybe more difficult moments. And I would back him to do so again. So, and I also think that his connection with Coventry City is so strong that if he believed that he couldn't turn things around, I believe that he would resign. I think he
like
believes...
Neil Harris did it.
At Millwall, he said something like, I was at 99% and that's not enough. So I think, I think there's enough there where I think he's got the club's best interests at heart. I think he's a fantastic Championship manager. He's proven it, and I think now's the time for unity.
Interestingly, at Preston, we switched to 3 at the back for the first time this season, and it is usually around this 10-game mark, as you mentioned in League One, where he switches formation and tries to switch it up. So interesting to see how we go moving forward. Ben, what's your thoughts on Coventry at the minute?
It's difficult because there's the emotional conversation of someone who's done, as you say, an incredible job, and for a lot of Coventry fans of an age is the greatest manager they've seen manage the club for what he's done. Everything comes to an end in terms of someone's managerial tenure, and you have to call it as it is. Outside of the parachute teams, in terms of the spend over 3-4 transfer windows and the squad, available, it's a big underperformance, and this inability to start a season well is a bit mind-boggling when we think Mark Robins is, a very, very good Championship manager. So it's on a bit of a knife edge, and I do think the assistant stuff is sometimes overblown. It can be a reductive argument, but we can't debunk Adi Vivash not being there and what impact that might have had in unsettling things as well. You would know better than me.
Yeah, from a very close point of view, I don't think it's the fact that Adi Vivash has left. More the point, we haven't brought in a senior assistant manager. So you see Robins at the games and he's stood on his own with 4 or 5 coaches sat behind him on their iPads, which is causing a lot of frustration with Coventry fans right now. But it's the fact that we haven't got someone stood next to him or someone for him to turn to. It feels like he's lost allies in the background.
Is it as if he's kind of coaching the coaches a little bit, whereby you've got John Dempster, you've got a few people stepping up from the academy, and it's like he's showing them the ropes as opposed to like a top level kind of coach that's coming in and really knows his stuff.
God, that squad is ready for top 6 though, isn't it? They need coaches now, don't they?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's where the frustration lies, because there's been investment in certain areas in the playing squad in terms of attack and defence. There's not really been investment into midfield, which we're lacking, and there's not been too much investment into the coaching stuff, which feels like there's been great investment but not
balanced
complete,
across,
not balanced.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great point, but just to sort of balance out what Ben... passionate about this, I'm knocking the mic over. Just to balance out what Ben was saying there, yes, there has been investment, and it's a great squad, don't get me wrong. A lot of investment in long-term assets as well. Like, it's not just this season that they've invested in these players for. They've invested because there's players that they think can develop with the club over a number of seasons. So I think that's worth factoring in as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll leave that there before I get any more. What I'll finish to say is that there was a snap poll on Twitter just after full time when fans are at their most irate, Robins in, Robins out, and it was 79% Robins in. So that shows you where Coventry are at. It is only a minority we're getting really frustrated. I think,
and I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that minority. I do.
yeah, you can see at both points definitely. We're going to come back to you both at your end for your score predictions for Luton Sunderland. We're going to look at the Leeds Watford game and Coventry versus QPR. But we're going to head into part 2 now. And before we move on, we've got some exciting news to bring you from Betfred. Betfred have signed an exciting new partnership with Boxer to become the promotional company's official partner. That means Betfred will be featured across 12 major fight nights, marking their return to Sky Sports Boxing. Take a look at this.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've all been waiting for.
Here at Betfred, we're passionate about our sport, and I'm proud to announce a partnership with Boxer. I'm looking forward to working with Ben and his team and being back on Sky Sports Boxing.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Betfred and Boxer, this is a great moment. Betfred, a company that have been around for over 50 years, a company that was born out of Manchester just like ourselves. Fred Doan and Betfred, who have supported boxing for many, many years, now partnering with Boxer.
Let's get this party started!
Hello guys, welcome back to part 2 of the Sportsman Untitled. And I've got a big question for you two to answer right now. Should Omar Reza get the Cardiff City job? Has he done enough, Gab?
If I was in Cardiff's board position, I would make this caretaker stint last as long as possible. because I think sometimes what you want to do is really let the situation breathe, because there's an advantage to be had from, if he's popular with the players, letting that situation sort of milk it as much as possible, because there's that motivation for the players to play for him to get the permanent job. But also, I think kind of give Omar Risa sort of an extended period just to see how things work, because sometimes what you don't want to do is, off the back of 7 points from 3 games, give him a long 5-year contract and then 4 months down the line decide it's not the right thing. So I think let the situation play out, maybe give him until the end of the season, because he's proven to get results with the players. I've liked some of the tweaks that I've seen, like Ruben Colwill coming in for Aaron Ramsey. I think already we're seeing Cardiff have gone from being the side that's really struggling under Errol Bullitt to being one of the more vibrant, creative sides in the league over the last 3 or 4 games. So, he's done some great work. I would certainly consider giving him the job until the end of the season and then maybe reviewing things in the summer.
And for you, Benny, he feels like quite an aspirational man, quite an aspirational manager, clearly wants the job. Would you go for him?
I think I would, but I say this from a position of suspicion with Mr. Tan, that he's not done the right thing often, and there's been various resets that have looked like, okay, here we go with Steve Morrison, and then that gets torn up, and Mark Hudson, and then you go Sabri Lamouchi, and I suppose Errol Bullitt was then similar to Sabri Lamouchi and kind of pragmatic, good on set plays, and now we're going in a different direction. So I think, well, I don't see them taking anyone from outside the club who'd be able to do better than Omar Rees doing right now. But whatever he does, I'm sure the Cardiff fans will agree with me on this. Can we stick with this, and can this be even a mid-term play for 2 or 3 years? Because this is a team that's been in the Premier League in fairly recent times, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Worth noting as well, Risa does have some good coaching pedigree. I think he's worked with the England setup, so I don't think you do that if you don't have something about you as a coach. Let's see how he can do as a number one, and it's been a great start for him, because you're looking at, he's got the best out of Callum Robinson, got the best out of Ruben Cole, Alex Robertson's playing really well, Perry and G. So already Cardiff City look like a team that can create chances at any moment, and that's not what we were seeing from them earlier in the campaign.
Cardiff are one of those championship clubs that I'm always kind of slightly concerned about in the background. I always feel like they're a club that could get dragged into a bit of a mess at any point. So if he's getting them smooth sailing for now, you don't want to go too long term. I think, Gab, you're right. Maybe give them to the end of the season and see how they go. But it's kind of calm in Cardiff, and that's all you need for a little bit, right, Ben, especially with Tan in charge.
Yeah, very much so. And I don't know what the expectations are, because Gab will talk as a Birmingham fan of when you just get mired in this season after season of being sort of towards the bottom. It's a hard rut to get out of, and you look at the setup and the stature of Cardiff, and it's not really commensurate with where they are as a club. So Yeah, let's see if we can turn it around.
Let's see, indeed. We're going to do a few general championship questions now, not focusing too much about the current action. I want to know from you two, who is the best championship centre-back right now? Maybe we can come up with a definitive top three. It's a really tough one, but there's some really good defenders.
There was a spoiler alert on this earlier in the episode, wasn't there?
Go on, Gab.
Maxime Estev, Pascal Struijk, and Chris Mepham would be my three. If I was, but I'd probably go with Estev because I think he's probably got the highest long-term ceiling. But they're all quality defenders.
Nailed it. Ben?
I was going to mention Estev. I think Anel Ahmedodzic for a bit of fun and a bit of chaos and sprinting down the pitch. It's so hard because you have to look at the parachute teams, don't you? And Struijk and Rodon, and it's just great in the Championship that there's still a place for a big unit at the back like Harry Souttar, say, for Sheffield United. But as a fan now of a Premier League team, that physicality and the size of these monsters in the Premier League, they're the players you need once you do get over the line and the other side. But 22, Estev?
Something like that, yeah. He was certainly recently part of France under-21 squad, so he definitely has that kind of elite potential. So
I agree with that.
Perfect. I haven't seen too much of Ipswich or the Premier League this season, but talking of a Championship centre-back who made the step up, has Jacob Greaves been injured or seen much action? Has he done anything for Ipswich?
Jacob Greaves has done well, with the big caveat that Ipswich now don't have 60% of the ball. So it's sometimes difficult with defenders and statistics in teams where you're being attacked a lot because they'll make a lot of clearances and tackles. Obviously, English player, left-sided centre-back, premium, age, all of that good stuff. He's actually just got injured after a really, really good start. But he's made the step up. But as I think maybe we're going to come on to later, it's very, very hard for clubs and individual players to do that. But in terms of, from an Ipswich point of view, that's an asset built in the EFL that you would now think spends the majority of his career at the top level.
I think that's where summer recruitment at Ipswich was amazingly good, because they've kind of built a Championship super team if they do go down. But let's not talk about that, Ben. Let's not talk about that. Josh Madger and Borja Sainz are the two top scorers in the Championship right now. Gab, for you, if you had to pick one to go into your team out of those two, very different players, of course, but good goal scorers at the moment, who are you going for?
I'll go with Borja Sainz. I think he's been fantastic for Norwich this season. It's been a really interesting role for him because the way Thorup sets his team up, it's created a slightly different role. So under David Wagner, he was kind of coming in off the left in a 4-2-3-1, whereas under Thorup, I'm having a bit of difficulty explaining it, but it's basically like, so the left back Callum Doyle kind of tucks in, and then you got Callum Fisher either pushing high and wide or tucking into midfield, and they've got a kind of box midfield, and then Sainz sort of comes in at the end and moves and combines with Josh Sargent. Yeah. I think he's done that role really well. So Sainz with his link-up play and goal-scoring ability would get my pick, but Madger's had a great season as well.
Absolutely. Sainz probably the best player in the Championship for me so far. Ben, who would you go for out of those two?
Well, you'd probably get some humorous answers from the Norwich and West Brom fans, because the Norwich fans wouldn't want Madger because they've got Sargent, and the West Brom fans wouldn't want Sainz because they've got Fellows. Yeah. But I suppose if Gab said Sainz, I'll say Madger for a bit of balance and just getting that goal scorer is. I know we're in a world now where someone from the left can come in and score 18, 20 goals in a season. You don't need that number 9, but if Carlos Corberan is your manager and you want that focal point up top, Madger's been fantastic. But Sainz, absolutely brilliant. And maybe the Norwich fans won't thank me for saying, I believe that might be Stuart Webber's parting gift and last very good signing for Norwich on a free transfer last year. So well done, Mr. Webber, even though he didn't leave in glory.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, fun question. Come dine with me. We're all aware of it. 4 Championship managers can join you on your come dine with me, right? Who are you going to sit down with, and whose meals are you going to be interested in trying? 4 Championship managers. Gab, let's come to you first.
So I've gone with... I like Daniel Farke because I think he's a gentleman, so I think you'd kind of want him at the table. I've gone for Neil Harris because I think he's a lively character. It'd be a bit of fun, wouldn't he? I've gone with John Eustace because I think he's very honest and down to earth. And I've also gone for Paul Warne for the sort of emotional intelligence. So I think between the 4 of them,
are they going to get along?
I think I don't know. I think you feel like Paul Warne and John Eustace would get out, and Daniel. It's whether Neil Harris will Neil Harris fall out with anyone.
Gives everyone food poisoning, maybe.
Ben,
Maybe.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to spend some time with Paul Warren, so the bants and the energy would be great. I've got to have Tim Volter in there. He just seems like chaos, absolute chaos, doesn't he? So I would add those two in the mix, and let's throw Omar Reza in, being we've just tried to push him for a job. Maybe it can be a celebration of his new gig.
But you might not get dessert though, because he might be an interim chef.
Stop
where
it.
He's gone before the dessert.
Well, we've got 6 names here, so I'll have to rent a restaurant.
Very good. Right, I want an outlandish prediction from both of you. Something that's definitely going to happen in the Championship before Christmas. Ben, have a look. Do you need a minute?
No,
you're all right.
Let's go for A. You can decide the number. £50 million bid for Chris Rigg.
Oh,
From Manchester United. There you go. I'll name the team.
right.
Birmingham having no chance of signing him in Man United. Come in with a 50 million bid then.
Hey, Birmingham have got more money than God, let alone Man United. Don't worry about that.
That is amazing. Gab, go on.
I think another 10 wins for Sunderland.
There you go.
There you
Have they even got 10 more
I
games?
think that is
before
called
Christmas?
doubling down, and well deserved.
They're not going to win another game now. You've done it. You've cursed them. I will go for either Rob Edwards or Mark Robins not to be in a job by Christmas.
The 2 playoff finalists
Yeah.
from just a couple of years ago. Wow.
Yeah, and it's not going to be very nice for either of the supporters, I don't think, about either of those 2 clubs. Right, let's get into part 3 of Sportsman Untitled, and we're going to start with Gab's corner of concern. Gab, I think it might be a team we've touched on already this week.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to find corners of concerns because I've looked at teams like Portsmouth, who I don't think, other than Stoke, I don't think they've been that bad this season.
Horrible fixtures, Gab.
Yeah, they've had an awful
Yeah.
fixture list, they've had injuries, they've not been too far away performance-wise, so I felt a bit sorry for them in a way. You think Sheffield United at home, they drew 0-0 but had the better chance, so it's that kind of thing. And similarly, Cardiff, they would have been corner of concern, but they've actually really turned a corner, as we've mentioned, under Omar Reza. And as Ben touched on earlier in the episode, all of the teams we expected to struggle this season are absolutely flying at the moment, either in the top half or in top 6. And so I think QPR would be the ones, because you're kind of stretching a little bit and thinking who are the ones that we... Plenty of time, of course, 3/4 of a season, but it's you do worry a little bit for QPR that there's already a massive difference in points between themselves and the sort of teams that they'll feel like they can catch. So that would be my worry. And then, for the reasons sort of mentioned at the top, that I'm not sure that the style that they've got is suited to either the playing personnel or possibly the situation at the bottom of the Championship.
Do you think the individual quality they've got in that squad that could see them relegated? Is the quality not there?
Well, Chair's fit again. They've got Karamoko Dembele, who I think did he play with Celtic's under-20 squad when he was 13? So that shows we're talking about a serious talent here, and he's got great, really quick mind. And I think if they can get the ball into him, I think he's got real quality. Michael Frey's done better than we expected, and they've got a good shot stopper in Paul Nardi. But I think for QPR, it's about can they progress the ball into those areas and get Chair, Dembele and Frey on the ball, and that seems to be a struggle for them at the moment. So that would be my corner of concern.
Lovely stuff. Are we seriously concerned about QPR as relegation candidates now? Is that how we have to look at them 10 games in?
Well, you have to be, and what you don't want the QPR owners to do is panic and make a very silly decision which could almost, make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. What I did notice about Cifuentes, and I don't want to go down the streaky route, let's call it momentum, when they started getting good results, they did keep getting good results. So I think there is a chance if it turns, we thought they'd be like top 10, at least top half, didn't we? So, but we can't say anything other than the bottom of the table side are in trouble at the moment. But I do agree with Gab. There should be enough there, and we find out a lot in the winter in the Championship through games 10 to 23 as we come into the transfer window.
Just one final point to add to what Ben's saying there about QPR. They've got the youngest ever CEO in the EFL in Christian Nuri, who I think was 27 in the summer. I think he's probably still learning about English football as well. I don't believe he's got a huge sort of football background and might sort of have difficulty knowing what works and what doesn't work, and whether there's enough footballing nous to support Cifuentes, and let's say they were to make a decision, who then makes the decision to replace, who to replace Cifuentes with. So one of the reasons why I'd advocate sticking with Cifuentes as much as what he did last season was, I'm not sure I think they've got the footballing nous upstairs to actually make a good decision to replace him, whereas Cifuentes has proven to get results previously.
The new contract that came at the end of September, Ben, do you think it's hard in this modern world of sacking managers, but does that give him a bit more protection? Surely it does. It's kind of a vote of confidence in him at the time, but things have got worse.
It's so difficult without knowing what all the exit clauses and whatnot are, because sometimes you think, contract, be torn up from both ends at any point sometimes. I mean, I agree with you that it's some kind of promise of, right, we believe in you, we want you to be the long-term guy. But Simon, if they're in the bottom three and the transfer window is looming and there's the panic sets in, you know exactly what happens, even with someone we think is very, very good like Cifuentes.
Interesting. We'll definitely have to keep an eye on QPR and see how they get on. Gab, next up, it's time for you to give us your championship treble at the first time of us.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going with Leeds United to beat Watford. I've got Norwich to win at Preston North End and Sheffield Wednesday to beat Swansea City. I've been unconvinced by Watford, despite their good start to the season on paper. I think they can be really vulnerable without the ball. I think we've seen that at Bramall Lane, for instance, in terms of a little bit passive, and I'm surprised that they've been able to accumulate the points tally they have. So I think very reliant on Chatford Hadse as well. So Leeds, for the reasons we talked about at the top of the show, very strong side. I think they beat Watford. Norwich City, I've been really impressed with it so far this season as well. We've talked about Borja Sainz. I really like Josh Sargent as well. I think they combine so well, and I'm not convinced by Preston North End. I think they'll be in a dogfight. And Sheffield Wednesday, I think, are a really good pressing side, and I think they're going to cause problems for Swansea, who are a very possession-based outfit for that reason. So I think Sheffield Wednesday beat Swansea, I think Norwich win at Preston, and I think Leeds beat Watford.
That treble has been boosted to 8-1 on Betfred for this midweek. Interesting you mentioned about Preston. Let's have a little conversation about them, because Heckingbottom has done a decent job since walking in. They have got a little bit of an increase in results, another win at the weekend. Ben, thoughts on Preston and Heckingbottom? Because obviously they made that very early decision to get rid of Ryan Lowe.
So I think the base level and the starting position was low, obviously because of the bad start. They've done what we kind of expect Preston to do and be decent at home, nice and sturdy. There's some clean sheets actually come in. Emil Rees scoring is a big help, because he looked like he was going to be a really good, sort of exotic, Scandinavian, isn't he, signing coming over, and someone who you could, increase the ceiling on. I think their natural position is still in and around that middle part. So I think he's going towards par, but he's doing what was needed, which was kind of coming in and stabilising after just a strange start to, what was it, like one day after the first game or something. So yeah, I can see both of your takes on this. I do think there's some optimism for Preston to come back to where we would expect them to always be, like 12 to 14th or something like that. But Norwich is all of a sudden now a hard game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Preston might be a little bit lower than 12 to 14th this season. They've definitely made improvements under Heckingbottom. They look more solid and resolute, don't they? I really like Liam's Lindsay at the back. Big Stay, I think they call him in midfield, the Icelander. So I'm a big fan of that. Like Mads Frokjær Jensen. So they've got a little bit of quality, but I think it's really been a case of just solidifying things for Preston North End under Heckingbottom. But I think Norwich are probably at a different sort of stage. So yeah, I expect Preston to possibly be in that bottom 8 this season.
I think I do agree with you. I think it's just Robbie Brady whipping crosses in. So Emil Rees is just a pretty good weapon to have, isn't it?
It's the year 2050 and Robbie Brady is still whipping crosses in the Championship.
They'll be wheeling them out on it.
Right, it's time for us to preview some of the midweek games, and we're going to start with Leeds versus Watford. Gab, you've already touched on it, so we'll come to you, Ben. It feels like a game that Leeds are going to dominate and win fairly comfortably. Is there any hope for Watford fans heading into this one?
No, I don't think so.
Let's leave it there.
No, unless Leeds do that Leeds thing of strangely tripping over their own shoelaces. I agree with Gab, and Watford they've had some horrible fixes in a row away from home, going to Bramall Lane and then going to Luton and now going to Leeds. Skewed better at home. And yeah, I think Leeds are going to be very confident after Friday night. And I definitely foresee a home win. Clip that one out.
It feels like they're just getting the wheels in motion, Leeds, and I feel like they're going to kind of cruise their way to the top of the league and get going. I know you've got your Sunderland opinion, Gab, but any hope for Watford for you? No?
For me, I think Watford, they've made Moussa Sissoko captain. And Sissoko, for me, he's always, even when he's been more physically capable than he is now at sort of 34, he's always been a bit of a liability without the ball. I often see him whenever the ball's sort of around the edge of the penalty area, you can still see him, not to pick out Sissoko, but the fact they've made him captain, for me, I think shows they've not got the right kind of core of leaders and go-to players that you can rely on. So that's my worry for Watford. I do think they've done quite well in terms of spotting players like Rocco Vata and Chakvatadze and Quadro Bar's come out of, into the equation this season. But I think as a collective, I don't see the kind of the rigidity or the sort of grit that in this Watford team so I think that I could possibly see them having a bit of a slump.
That Elland Road atmosphere as well, Ben. When they get a goal up, I mean, it feels like there's just wave after wave of attack coming at you. And I think it's obviously going to be massive for Leeds this season, but it's difficult to see Watford coping with that, I think.
It's a special place. All I'll say about Elland Road is it's either a blessing or a curse for Leeds, because I actually happened to be present for the infamous Derby County semi-final. And although it was an incredible atmosphere, never have I seen a stadium turn a team's legs to stone like that in my life. Just this wave of, and the Leeds fans will know what I'm talking about, that Yorkshire anxiety kicking in. So it can work both ways, but no, it's a special place.
Grab a score prediction from you both for this one, Gab.
3-0 to Leeds.
I'll give Watford a goal, 3-1.
Excellent stuff. Next up for us to look at is Luton versus Sunderland. This one on Wednesday night. It feels pretty big for both teams. Sunderland flying at the moment, Ben, but Luton off the back of a great derby win.
Yeah, I can't separate the two here. I think I'm going for a boring 1-1 on this one. Luton will be very confident and very high on morale after beating Watford in the way they did. And if we wind back to that playoff semi-final second leg, which I was at actually, they beat up Sunderland on set plays, but this is a very different Sunderland now. Use the word rigidity, which I not only cannot fathom but cannot say either, but they're far more robust, I'll go with now, aren't they? So I don't see them folding like that. But I mean, look, if Sunderland go there and take a win and you're looking at a 9-point week, then I don't know, maybe I'm climbing aboard Gav's Super Sunderland first place train, but I'll go 1-1.
Gab, of course you're going to be on the Sunderland bandwagon, right?
2-0 Sunderland,
mate. you mentioned that semi-final. They are a completely different team. Like you mentioned, more robust. Are there any concerns about Lillibury? I mean, what we've seen so far has been magnificent. Is he going to struggle with the Championship winter? Is he going to struggle with these type of away games?
No, because I think he's implemented a discipline into his side and a shape that allows them to grind out results when they're not at the best. Like the performance at Hull on Sunday, it wasn't the sparkling performance that we saw from them against Sheffield Wednesday, say on week 2, but they're still able to keep a clean sheet because of that rigidity.
And a game against Middlesbrough, Gab, they just gave them the ball, had a nice compact shape, scored a goal. Well, and we'll have those 3 points. Thank you very much.
The other thing is Luton play with their wing backs very high and wide, and so I think there's going to be opportunities for Mundell and for Patrick Roberts to sort of get in behind them and get Wilson Isidore in behind. So, I think Sunderland win this.
We may not be talking about Luton turning a corner for another week if they string 2 wins together. Final game for us to preview here is QPR versus Coventry, bottom of the table, bit of a relegation clash. Coventry can go bottom, Ben, if they lose this game. It feels massive, absolutely massive.
I mean, the draw is just absolutely no help for anybody. There's going to be a very unhappy set of fans after this game. It feels like someone's winning or losing by 1 goal, and I would love to hear what you two guys are going to say before I make a prediction.
I don't see Coventry coming away from this game having lost it. I think they're going to get something because actually they did lose at Preston, but the 3-5-2 with Latty in the middle of the back 3 allows the wide centre-back to be a bit more aggressive, so Latty kind of plays a bit of a sweeper role. I think the midfield 3 need to probably impose themselves a bit more. I don't know if you agree with that, Simon, but I think there is a framework there for Coventry to start to establish some solidity, and I do back Mark Robins to find a formula just to get Coventry out of this situation. So for me, I think Coventry are going to keep a clean sheet at Loftus Road, and maybe grind out a result that could turn the season.
I don't even remember what a clean sheet is. You mean you don't have to let the other team score? I mean, that's an amazing thing.
What do you think, Simon? Do you think you'll be able to?
I'm terrified.
Really?
I worry if we lose this game, that could be the end.
Live on the box as well.
Live on the TV.
But it only takes a scrappy 1-0 to all of a sudden get yourselves moving again.
I thought we'd beat Preston, and we didn't. We're the ones who lost.
You never
the
beat
scrappy
Preston,
game.
do you?
We never beat Preston. I think we're going to get something like you, Gab. I think we just have to be a bit more rigid, a bit more functional. Let some of the attackers find the net. We did score, in my eyes, a good goal at Preston, which was ruled out for handball. If we can get a slice of luck along the way, I think we can win the game 1-0.
So in the interest of balance, QPR 1, Coventry 0 then. I'll back QPR just so we've got all bases covered
I think
here.
if there's more than 2 goals, it'll be a bit of a miracle, given what we've seen.
It's
from these
winter,
two
it's a
teams so
3-game
far.
week, it's midweek. Yeah, there's gonna be some stoic under 1.5 goals games this midweek, isn't there?
Yeah, right. That's enough talking about Coventry, I think. Last question for you, Ben. Do you think we're going to be talking about Ipswich Town on this pod, the Championship podcast, next season?
I mean, Gab managed to come up with an Ipswich always losing to Norwich dig, so we'll always manage to talk about Ipswich.
We have to.
Somehow. Look, hopefully not. We're in, and I don't want to get into a big rant about the chasms and the cliff edges in English football, but we're in a time at the moment, and the poor performance of the 3 promoted teams last year has exacerbated this, where we were chatting about it with the producers and the lads beforehand. It's so hard against these teams that have been in the Premier League for 8, 10, 20 seasons, even some of the mid-table teams like that. Hopefully Ipswich can get some kind of run.
Do you think they're going to back McKenna in January, Ben?
I don't know to what extent, because they'll consider the new contract, and the summer window was already a big backing of Kieran McKenna. But
the contract isn't on the pitch.
No.
Piece of paper.
But it is the Kieran McKenna show since that new contract got signed. You'd like to hope so, but then from a business point of view, you almost get to do we hold our cards close to our chest here and see how this is going to play out in terms of investment?
But I suppose in terms of keeping hold of McKenna, I think he'll get Premier League offers in the summer, regardless of whether or not Ipswich stay up. So if you want to keep hold of him and build for the long term, you probably need to stay up this season, because I'm not sure that he's going to come with you for the rebuild of the Championship.
No, that's a reasonable comment, and a future that I don't even want to fathom, because he's been so incredible for us. No, but the point I was going to try and make was just to try and get that, even if bottom of the Premier League, 2 wins in 5 games will make such a difference. And Leicester have just gone back-to-back wins. But look, for all of you Championship fans watching, it is magical. It is fantastic to be up there and, be mixing it with the big boys. But no 3-game weeks, no easy wins. And you do have to accept that a 17th place season does contain 2 months without a win a couple of times,
After winning every other week or every week for 2 years. I mean, it takes some getting used to. Thanks very much, Ben.
Pleasure.
And Gab, for joining us on this week's Sportsman Untitled. Look forward to welcoming you both back soon. Thank you for watching or listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify. But before we go, there's a huge event going on at the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester this weekend. Massive boxing match between Jack Catterall and Regis Prograis. Nearly said Regis Lebree there, Gab. That would have been quite a fight. Anyway, we're giving away 2 pairs of tickets to that event. All you have to do is comment below on YouTube, like and subscribe. Leave a comment, we'll pick a winner at random. T's and C's apply as always. But that's it for us on this week's Sportsman Untitled, and we'll see you next time.
Nothing's perfect in life and in sport. We've had our frustrations.
Yeah, he's flying. I've been saying for a long time now, Jack, he's the best fighter in the world at 140. The only thing stopping him from proving that to people. He's getting the opportunities, which now Eddie's providing for him, and consistency. Fighting regular. That was one of the problems, and it wasn't for anybody's fault. It was just bad timing. COVID stalled a lot of things for people. Then he got the horrendous decision with Josh Taylor.
And still undisputed super lightweight champion of the world, the
Regis Prograis is by no means an easy night's work for anyone, but they're the type of fights what Jack needs to be involved in. First of all, to make sure that he performs at his best. So we needed it to be someone like Prograis who's going to bring the best out in Jack. If he can't beat Prograis, then he's not going to be able to fight for a world title anyway.
An unfortunate injury meant that Jack Catterall had to pull out of the original date of August 24th until the fight was rearranged for October 26th.
He's in the form of his career, he really is. He's absolutely flying. And I'm so pleased for him because it's been a frustrating few years for him. He's on the verge of changing his family's life, and he's getting the opportunities what he deserves, what his skill set deserves. It's great to see.
A little less than 3 weeks away now, so training's been going really well. You've seen today a bit of pads in the ring, a little bit of touching up. We've got a couple of spars left, a couple of big days left, but yeah, it's all closing in now. Yeah, you'd be a fool to, I think, outside of the current world champions, you would say that Regis is probably deserving of one. He's been two-time world champion, he's right up there. The word is the toughest fight outside the world champions, and with boxing Regis, we're excited for it. Of course, I still need to, and I want to fill, and I believe I can fulfil my dream of becoming world champion, but I've got a big night first in October.
I think Prograis is going to be a tough test, but I really believe that Jack can stop him. I think, if he goes about it properly, he's disciplined, he's in the form that he's been in the gym, I think by the time he gets to round 8, he can have him out there.